chart starts in the heart, from head to the feet. It's Gaia's drum beat.
Oh, hello. I'm Gemini Brett, and I'm here to address the world's greatest mystery. I'll begin by asking the most puzzling question of our time. Why in the heavens would anyone ever go to NASA for astrological advice? I can't tell you how many emails I consistently receive about this strange 13th sign thing. Let's go to the source. This page at NASA's Space Place teaches us, first things first, astrology is not astronomy. Astrology is not science. No one has shown that astrology can be used to predict the future or describe what people are like based on their birth date. Still, like reading fantasy stories, many people enjoy reading their astrological forecast or horoscope in the newspaper every day. At the bottom of the page, we're told that when the Babylonians first invented the 12 signs of Zodiac, a birthday between about July 23rd and August 22nd meant being born under the constellation Leo. Now, 3,000 years later, the sky has shifted because Earth's axis, North Pole, doesn't point in quite the same direction. Now, Mimi's August 4th birthday would mean she was born under the sign of Cancer, one constellation earlier, not Leo. The constellations are different sizes and shapes, so the sun spends different lengths of time lined up with each one. The line from Earth through the sun points to Virgo for 45 days, but it points to Scorpius for only 7 days. To make a tidy match with their 12-month calendar, the Babylonians ignored the fact that the sun actually moves through 13 constellations, not 12. Then they assigned each one of these 12 constellations equal amounts of time. Besides the 12 familiar constellations of the Zodiac, the sun is also aligned with Ophiuchus for about 18 days each year. Okay, these are very important statements that we should address. But first, who in the heck is Mimi? To the top of the page. Leo Shmeo. Hi, I'm a Leo. No, I'm the Leo. Some people believe, or make believe, that the current sign of the Zodiac affects how things go in their everyday lives, depending on the sign of their birth. This idea is called astrology, and people who claim to use the signs of the Zodiac to make predictions are called astrologers. Mimi's birthday is August 4th. When she says, I'm a Leo, she means that on her birthday, the imaginary line from Earth through the sun and out into space on the other side of the sun points to the constellation Leo. Is that what Mimi means when she says, I'm a Leo, NASA? Well, if she does, she had a different teacher than I did, because I learned right away at the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School that signs and constellations are very different things. I'll show you why. To be fair, NASA did rapidly respond to the fear and rage that their page invoked, saying, here at NASA, we study astronomy, not astrology. We didn't change any zodiac signs, we just did the math. This from a Huffington Post article, which concludes like this. Though many people define themselves based on their star signs, wear astrological jewelry, and read their horoscopes religiously, the zodiac is ultimately a human creation. So for every Taurus and Capricorn that question their identity in the midst of all this astrological hubbub, just remember, NASA doesn't care about your star sign, and you probably shouldn't either. Well, as the poets say, hate has gotta hate, and that's okay. I'm not creating this video to stoke the flames of some debate, but rather to address what I feel to be a very important challenge for tropical astrology today. It is absolutely true that constellations and signs do not align. How should we astrologers respond to this? How do you? Well, eyes to the sky. And there will be a tiny bit of math too. We'll start with the undeniably real Earth astronomy NASA appears to be forgetting or ignoring when they attack tropical astrology in this way. Actually, to set the mood, let's first hear a note, or rather 12, to see why creation creates in 12s, not 13s. This magical illustration was co-created with Anna Zaharia for Arts of the Chart. There are 12 zodiacal signs and 12 Pythagorean keys because creation creates in 12s. I suggest the zodiacal constellations result from the signs, not the other way around. And you may know that constellations and signs do not align. Why? Well, first things first. The four angular lines here aligned to the cardinal signs point to the cardinal directions, north, east, south, and west, which of course we're used to seeing this way on a compass rose. The cardinal directions result from the primary motion of Earth. What is our primary astronomical and therefore our primary astrological experience? Day and night, right? One is dark, the other is light. One is cold and wet, the other hot and dry, and we only have to live for 24 hours' time to experience this profound cycle of yin and yang. I refer to Earth's north-south spin axis as Gaia's spine, and to the plane of our planet's west to east daily rotation as the circle of matter. The more accepted term is the celestial equator. Can you see why? And can you see how Earth's rotation establishes the cardinal directions? Because Earth spins west to east, we notice the heavens spinning east to west, which means the northern sky spins counterclockwise, and it does so about the north celestial pole, which in our time is very strongly aligned to Polaris, North Star. I believe this is an ancient depiction of the northern sky's primary motion to northern hemispherian eyes. The east to west motion of the southern sky is clockwise, but there is no star currently aligned to the south celestial pole. This changes with precession. We'll get back to that, but first, second things second. Earth's annual revolution, or yearly orbit about Sun, is the secondary motion. The plane of the Earth-Sun dance is called the Ecliptic, which I refer to as the circle of spirit, because it's where the Sun lives. If we extend the ecliptic from Earth's heart towards infinity in all directions, we encounter the zodiacal constellations. So from Earth's point of view, Sun is always held by one of these 12 star groups. The Archer, the Goat, the Water Bearer pouring onto Famolo below, the Fish. Notice how big this constellation is. Not the case for Little Ram. The Bull with Pleiades on its back and bright eye Aldebaran. The Heavenly Twins and the rather dim Crab. Regulus-hearted Lion. The Priestess, another giant constellation of our sky. The Scales. The Scorpion down below with Antares at heart. Back to Archer. The wheel in the sky keeps on turning. the constellations of time and the signs of life, another profound cycle of yin and yang, the not two who give rise to four, the rise, the reach, the rest, and the roots. This is nature's key to the astrological technique of secondary progressions, where we relate day and year. The primary and secondary motions share a commitment to the cycle of yin and yang. Sunrise is like spring, midday like summer, sunset like autumn, midnight like winter. Sun rises and sets because Earth spins. But what is the reason for the seasons? The plane of Earth's primary motion, or daily rotation, is tilted in respect to the plane of Earth's secondary motion, or annual orbit, by an angle of about 23.5 degrees. The spin axis, the spine of Gaia, is always north-south, so at March equinox time, Sun is due east of Earth center. This is why we begin the natural zodiac and the astrological year with tropical Aries, because east is the place of the rise, new beginnings. Aries, Taurus, Gemini bring us to June solstice, when the northern axis of Earth is leaning towards the sun. Sun is due north of Earth center. This is summer solstice for northern hemisphere, winter solstice for the southern. Cancer, Leo, Virgo bring us to September equinox, when Sun is due west of Earth center. Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius bring us to December solstice, when the southern axis of Earth is leaning towards the Sun. Sun is due south of Earth center, and this is summer solstice for the southern hemisphere, winter solstice for the northern hemisphere. Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces bring us back to March equinox, when Sun is due east, the beginning of the next astrological year. Obviously, this model is not to scale, neither in terms of space nor time. The equinoxes and solstices aren't days, but rather moments, so Earth shouldn't be spinning at these stations. But I wanted to show you the cycle of shadow for all earthly latitudes that results from the annual dance of Earth about Sun. Conversely, Earth should be spinning more than 90 times between these stations, but our eyes would not be able to track that in such a short animation. The most important transmission of this clip is that Sun's apparent annual movement through the zodiacal signs and constellations results from Earth's secondary motion, our annual orbit about Sun. Very importantly, signs and constellations are different things. We'll get back to that. The signs of the tropical zodiac, shown here, are born of the cardinal directions, which themselves are established by the north-south spin axis of Earth, the axis of our primary motion, or daily rotation. Tropical Aries, Taurus, and Gemini are northern signs that head north. Cancer, Leo, Virgo, northern signs that head south. Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, southern signs that head south. And Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, southern signs that head north. We experience this directional essence of the tropical zodiac in many ways here on Earth. One is through witnessing Sun's annual change of position on the eastern horizon at sunrise and on the western horizon at sunset. Another is the witness of the Sun's change in midday altitude, the change of length of day, the energy of the seasons. All of these can be tracked through the Sun's annual change in declination. Most astrology software will allow us to track the declination of Sun, Moon, and planets as they wander through the signs of the zodiac. Here we see the longitude, latitude, right ascension, and declination for Sun at March equinox. What do these four variables describe? Right ascension and declination describe the angular position of a celestial object as measured from the celestial equator, which is the plane of Earth's primary motion or daily rotation. Right ascension describes a horizontal position along the celestial equator or projected to it, from 0 to 360 degrees, or from 0 to 24 hours. Declination describes a vertical displacement from the celestial equator. A body with 0 degrees declination is on the celestial equator and is therefore seen directly above Earth's equator. 90 degrees north declination is directly above Earth's north pole at the north celestial pole, and 90 degrees south declination is directly above Earth's south pole at the south celestial pole. Longitude and latitude describe the angular position of a celestial object as measured from the ecliptic, which is the plane of Earth's secondary motion, or annual orbit about Sun. From Earth, we witness Sun circling this plane every year. Longitude describes the horizontal position along the ecliptic, or projected to it, from 0 to 360 degrees, or from 0 through 30 degrees of each of the 12 zodiacal signs. Latitude describes a vertical displacement from the ecliptic plane. Sun's latitude is always 0 degrees because Sun is always on the ecliptic. This is not true for Moon or any of the planets, which each have their own unique orbital plane. Longitude and right ascension are both measured from the tropical Aries point, where the celestial equator and ecliptic intersect due east of Earth's center, because east is the direction of the rise, new beginnings. At March equinox, Sun has 0 degrees longitude, 0 degrees latitude, 0 degrees right ascension, and 0 degrees declination. Let's track the change in these angular measurements as Sun travels through the signs of the tropical zodiac during the course of the year. If we compare longitude and declination, we'll find tropical Aries, Taurus, and Gemini are northern signs, which respectively carry Sun further and further north of the celestial equator, bringing us to June solstice, where Sun has a longitude of 90 degrees, or 0 degrees tropical Cancer, and a declination of about 23.5 degrees north, which is the maximum northern displacement of the ecliptic from the celestial equator. At June solstice, Sun is due north of Earth's center, and Sun's maximum displacement north of the celestial equator brings the longest day for the northern hemisphere, summer solstice, and the longest night for the southern hemisphere, winter solstice. Sun now begins to decrease in northern declination. Tropical Cancer, Leo, and Virgo are northern signs which respectively carry Sun further and further south, bringing us to September equinox, where Sun has a longitude of 180 degrees, or 0 degrees tropical Libra, and a declination of 0 degrees because the tropical Libra point is the other place in space where the ecliptic and celestial equator intersect. If Sun were a point rather than a disk in our sky, day and night would be exactly equal at equinox time. Tropical Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius are southern signs, which respectively carry Sun further and further south of the celestial equator, bringing us to December solstice, where Sun has a longitude of 270 degrees, or 0 degrees tropical Capricorn, and a declination of about 23.5 degrees south, which is the maximum southern displacement of the ecliptic from the celestial equator. At December solstice, Sun is due south of Earth's center, and Sun's maximum displacement south of the celestial equator brings the longest night for the northern hemisphere, winter solstice, and the longest day for the southern hemisphere, summer solstice. The Capricorn goat climbs the mountain, which means Sun now begins to decrease in southern declination. Tropical Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces are southern signs which respectively carry Sun further and further north, bringing us back to March equinox, where Sun has a longitude of 360 degrees, which is 0 degrees, or 0 degrees tropical Aries, and a declination of 0 degrees, marking Sun's return to the intersection of ecliptic and celestial equator due east of Earth center, the place of the rise where the next astrological year begins. Imagine watching this annual dance from Sun. Your view of Earth changes between March equinox, June solstice, September equinox, and December solstice, right? Let's have a look at this seasonal shift from the side. Now, how could I ever draw this to scale? Sun is 864,000 miles in diameter. That's about 108 times the diameter of Earth. Did you know there are 86,400 seconds in a day? Interesting. Fortunately, Sun is also about 108 solar diameters, or 93 million miles away from us, because it's hard to survive when you're burning alive. Of course, Sun is bright enough to illuminate half of Earth at all times, but our star is so far from us that the apparent diameter of the solar disk in our sky is only about 1/2 of an arc degree. At equinox, Sun shines directly above Earth's equator. Remember, Sun's declination is 0 degrees at equinox, so the equinox Sun is on the celestial equator. Wait a second. Equinox? Equator? Interesting. The equinox Sun casts no midday shadows at Earth's equator because Sun culminates directly overhead at the zenith. Midday shadows for the northern hemisphere at equinox point north because Sun culminates in the south, which is true every day of the year for northern hemisphere latitudes between the Arctic Circle and the Tropic of Cancer. Wait a second. Tropic of Cancer? Interesting. Midday shadows for the southern hemisphere at equinox point south because Sun culminates in the north, which is true every day of the year for southern hemisphere latitudes between the Antarctic Circle and the Tropic of Capricorn. Wait a second. Tropic of Capricorn? Interesting. Why do these rules break down for Arctic, Antarctic, and tropical latitudes? Well, as Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Let's do a bit of shadow work, friends. We'll keep this perspective and see what comes alive in the conscious mind as we witness the Earth changes that result from the seasonal shift of our planet's rotational axis and the light. Remember, tropical Aries, Taurus, and Gemini are northern signs that go north. Let's pause here, but let Earth spin. Sun is 6 degrees tropical Taurus, or 36 degrees longitude. This is April 26, 2018. Sun's declination is about 13.5 degrees. There are 60 minutes in a degree, just as there are 60 minutes in an hour. This 13.5 degree declination can be measured as the angle between Earth's rotational axis and Earth's shadow, which is always perpendicular to the ecliptic plane. At 13.5 degrees declination, Sun shines directly above locations situated at 13.5 degrees north latitude on Earth. Sun casts no midday shadows for these locations on this day. Here's a rule to remember. Tropical locations experience so-called days without shadow when Sun's declination is equal to their earthly latitude. Make sense? What other fruits has our shadow work produced? Notice that all earthly locations north of 13.5 degrees north latitude must look south to see the midday sun at this time, while all earthly locations south of 13.5 degrees north latitude must look north to see the midday sun at this time. And that includes northern hemisphere locations between the equator and 13.5 degrees north. See why the northern hemisphere looks south and southern hemisphere looks north to see the midday sun rule does not apply to the tropics? Oh right, there's another exception to the rule. Not all southern hemisphere locations look north to see the midday sun at this time because sun doesn't rise at all for Antarctic locations south of 76.5 degrees south latitude. Can you see how that zone is in 24-hour shadow at this time? 76.5 degrees is the complementary angle to 13.5 degrees. In other words, or numbers, 90 minus 13.5. And truthfully, you'd have to go a ways south of there to experience full days in Earth's shadow at this time, because Sun is not a point, but rather a sphere that appears to be about a half degree of arc in Earth's skies. But let's not get too technical here. Back to the shift of the tilt through the year. Can you see why the midday sun increases in altitude for latitudes north of the ecliptic, while it decreases in altitude for latitudes south of the ecliptic as Sun continues to climb through tropical Taurus and Gemini? They are northern signs that carry Sun to the northern extreme, the maximum axis lean of about 23.5 degrees, June solstice. Summer solstice for the northern hemisphere, winter solstice for the southern hemisphere. The northern axis of Earth leans towards Sun, so Sun is due north of Earth center. This happens around June 21st every year when Sun reaches 0 degrees tropical Cancer and shines directly above the Tropic of Cancer, which, like the Tropic of Capricorn and the tropical Zodiac, derives its name from tropikos, Greek for turn around. Solstice is Latin for sun stops. Sun stops what? Sun stops moving north and turns around to head south for 6 months. Everywhere on Earth, Sun rises further and further north from its southern azimuthal extreme at December solstice through tropical Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini until it reaches northern azimuthal extreme at June solstice, where Sun stops and, sideways like a crab, slowly begins to move south. Can you see the motion between the tropicos, the turnarounds, encoded in the Cancer glyph? Ta-da! Now what's with this word Antisha? Libra is Antisha Pisces. Scorpio is Antisha Aquarius. Antisha is derived from the Greek sha, meaning shadow. Back to our shadow work we go. Tropical Cancer, Leo, and Virgo are northern signs that go south. The altitude of midday sun now decreases for earthly latitudes north of the ecliptic and increases for locations south of the ecliptic. The higher the sun, the shorter the shadow. This is the key to Antisha. A location experiences the same midday shadow length twice a year. We stopped at April 26th on the way up, and we pause here August 16th on the way down, because like the 6 degrees tropical Taurus sun of April 26th, the 24 degrees tropical Leo sun has a declination of about 13.5 degrees. What's the length of midday shadow for 13.5 degrees north latitude on these two dates? There isn't one. April 26th is 56 days before June solstice, and August 16th is 56 days after June solstice. The 2 days without shadow for locations at 13.5 degrees north latitude. Get it? Sun's journey through tropical Virgo completes 6 months of shine above northern hemisphere tropical climes and brings Sun to 0 degrees tropical Libra, September equinox, 0 degrees solar declination, so Sun once again rises due east and culminates directly above Earth's equator before setting due west vertically into the horizon, which looks a little something like this. Ta-da! Tropical Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius are southern signs which carry Sun further and further south. Solar altitude at midday increases for latitudes south of the ecliptic plane and decreases for latitudes north of those overhead sun rays. And we find our way to December solstice, the maximum 23.5 degree tilt of Earth's southern axis towards Sun, now south of Earth center. Summer solstice for the southern hemisphere and winter solstice for the northern hemisphere. 24-hour light south of the Antarctic Circle, and 24-hour darkness north of the Arctic Circle. These circles are drawn 66.5 degrees south and north latitude, respectively, and are pierced by Earth's shadow line at solstice time. Note that 66.5 degrees is the complementary angle to the degree of the tropics, 23.5, the maximum seasonal lean of Earth's rotational axis. This is undeniable truth. The 0 degrees tropical Capricorn sun shines directly above Earth's Tropic of Capricorn every year around December 21st. Cosmo and many others have been misguided by astronomers' apparent inability, or more likely refusal, to connect the tropical zodiac with undeniably real Earth astronomy. It seems to me the folks at NASA's Space Place are perhaps too blinded by their apparent need to ridicule astrology to see this truth of Earth and sky with their own eyes. I'm not sure why anyone would go to a government organization that vehemently denies astrology for astrological teachings, but those who do have been told the December 21st star sign is now Sagittarius. Now, I will be the last to deny the truth that the tropical signs do not align to the constellations they are traditionally associated with, but they never can exactly. We'll get back to that. Hey, NASA, if the December 21st star sign is now Sagittarius, shouldn't you rename Earth's 23.5 degrees south latitude the Tropic of Sagittarius? Why aren't you now calling Earth's 23.5 degrees north latitude the Tropic of Gemini? In fact, why not call it the Tropic of Orion? Yes, it is true that the maximum northern declination bit of the ecliptic we tropical astrologers have called 0 degrees Cancer for more than 2,000 years is not, in our age, aligned to the constellation of the Crab. Well, it's not aligned to the Twins either, but rather lives between them and the Bull. And it's exactly aligned in our time to the Hunter's Club. Why don't we call this the Tropic of Orion then? I'll tell you why. Because the tropicos are not about any star other than our own. The tropical zodiac is entirely built upon the annual astronomy of Earth and Sun and aligns to the cardinal directions which are established by Earth's axis of daily rotation, the secondary and primary motions. I'm not suggesting the fixed stars do not participate in our spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical experience. I'm simply attempting to clearly demonstrate the undeniable truth that the tropical zodiac is not celestial, but rather terrestrial. Tropical astrology is Earth astrology. The signs are the hours of this cosmological clock, and the constellations certainly help us see where they are, but the tropical zodiac is in no way fixed to the constellations or to the stars. There certainly are star-based zodiacs widely used today. They are called sidereal, which means of the stars, but they are not aligned to the constellations either. We'll get back to that. Now, I feel this is a very important key. While stars are celestial, constellations are terrestrial. Beings on a planet orbiting Aldebaran or Sirius don't see the Orion Nebula housed within a star group that we Earthlings can connect as an image of a giant hunter in our sky. So here's the rub. The signs of the tropical zodiac do not approach Earth from the constellations or stars, but rather emanate from the center of our planet along the ecliptic plane outwards towards the heavens. And I suggest every planet has its own tropical zodiac based on its own particular rotational configuration to its orbital path. Have you considered which stars are currently fixed to the celestial poles of Mars? Friends, the folks at NASA are not the first to promote a constellational zodiac, nor are these the first scientists to attack tropical astrology without, as they say, doing the math. But people for some reason seem to be respecting NASA as an astrological authority, and we astrologers can only respond intelligently rather than react defensively by ourselves becoming authorities of zodiacal astronomy. My fellow astrologers, I do not mean this to be a statement of shame in any way, but I believe we are the ones to blame for this confusion. Our craft is essentially twofold. It is astronomy and correspondences, and we are losing astrology's connection to nature by asking, generally speaking, materialist, rationalist scientists to do our astronomy for us. It's not wrong that we're focused on correspondences because we are here to promote healing and feeling and knowing and growing. But please understand that tables of planetary data and computer software can in no way convey the whole of the message the planets are here to relay. Eyes to the sky. This is a critical time. We have been issued this 13th sign vision by the blind to address the divide. Unless we reclaim the sacred essence of astronomy embodied by the ancients, we will entirely lose the roots of the rules and the proofs of the equations we use. The earth and sky hold the keys to the astrological mysteries. I've shown you nature's kiss in the Aries glyph. The east has always risen like the horns of a ram. I believe that's why these stars were connected in a constellation called Aries, though they do not naturally suggest this shape. Very few of the zodiacal constellations look anything like that which they are said to describe. Were the constellations, in fact, established to map the energies of the tropical signs? Historians tell us the Babylonians drew the sidereal constellations well before the tropical zodiac was imagined in Hellenistic times. But it seems to me the ram horn rise of the east suggests otherwise. And do you see what I see? These connected fish sure look like the Aries glyph. Could this be why these stars were tied? They did indeed rise due east at the dawning of the age of Pisces. Now, to keep the sky of Athens, Greece, which resides at a northern latitude of 38 degrees, our Aries glyph must bow 38 degrees to the south, where the height of the light is always found. What's that thing about the Lamb of God teaching the disciples to become fishers of men again? And didn't he say something about following the man carrying a pitcher of water into his house? Speaking of the Aquarian age, these days software allows us to look through the ground. When we do facing east, the other tropical sign of March equinox time is found. Astrology is so much more than a symbolic language alone. Astrology is the poetic breath of nature. The Cancer glyph expresses the tropicos, the turnarounds between Sun's 6-month journey north and 6-month journey south. Gemini, the other tropical sign of June solstice time, expresses Sun's 6-month climb and 6-month decline. The Libra glyph depicts the due west set of equinox sun. The Sagittarius arrow shows the celestial equator and rotational axis of our planet tilted in respect to our orbital plane. What might we find in the Capricorn sign that holds Sun on the other side of December solstice time? I suggest this glyph represents Sun's climb from southern depths back to the equator line to celebrate the start of the next astrological year with the Aries sign. Now, I'd be wise to tread lightly with such seasonal statements because, of course, the longest northern hemisphere night means the height of the light down under. In fact, The northern hemisphere is down under for the southern hemisphere, right? Well, yes. And no, because nature reveals a directional flow. Allow me to share the astronomical key to why the tropical zodiac signs do not need to be flipped between hemispheres despite seasonal opposition. The tropical zodiac is not born of the seasons, but they both have the same source, the cardinal directions of Earth. The tropical zodiac is directional, and south is south everywhere on our planet. Well, except for the South Pole, where everywhere is north. But regardless, east is the rise and west is the rest everywhere on Earth. Now, when we turn to north and south, it might sound as if I'm contradicting my own teachings. I mean, the northern hemisphere looks south to the midday sun, while the southern hemisphere looks north. Like the seasons, the energies of north and south are reversed between hemispheres. Here's another challenge. The north lunar node is the descending node in southern hemisphere skies. Okay, but here's the rub. Sun is moving towards Vega. We've known about this for hundreds of years. Research the apex of the sun's way to learn more. I'll just reveal the answer in the back of this book that is written when the sun's directional course is contemplated in relationship to the tropical zodiac. Vega never sets at Earth's North Pole and never rises at Earth's South Pole. In other words, Sun is moving towards the direction we here on Earth call north. And of course, Earth is traveling with our star. At December solstice, we Earthlings witness Sun moving north from southern maximum over the Tropic of Capricorn. All of us can call December solstice the annual birth of the sun, regardless of whether days begin to grow longer at this time as they do for the northern hemisphere, or shorter as they do for the southern hemisphere, because we are having a local experience of sun beginning to move in the direction that it actually does when seen from an extraterrestrial point of view. Let's chew on that for a few while we watch the directional, oh, that means tropical, zodiac do its thing. We'll take a break from the words too and listen to the flute medicine of the great John Dumas. All right, greetings.
Hello.
That was a ton of information.
Yes.
Probably the right time for a spot of tea. I'm going to rename myself here. I came in under a different moniker than the one I typically use. And I just, again, want to apologize for the confusion at the beginning, folks. I had a really strange happening in life today. My sister's dog passed away on the day of my niece's graduation. And I almost decided just to talk about that because the astrological signatures have been profound. I'll just share quickly that I have a Gemini moon and sun is applying to my moon right now, and Venus, we know, just ingressed Leo, and she's applying to the square with Uranus, and Venus is in my third, right? So siblings, my sister. And then from a mundane perspective, a horary perspective, or derived house perspective, my sister's dog would be the sixth of the third, which is my eighth, which is where Saturn is now. And I could go on and on. But it's a fun exploration. And I know we astrologers would probably rather speak astrology than hear that full nerd session you just experienced. So I appreciate your presence and your patience with that information. But as I expressed in the video, and a lot of you know, this is kind of my devotion, is returning the essence of sacred astronomy to our astrological craft so that we can respond intelligently when we're under such attacks like NASA's 13 sign situation. So I told Linda that this would be a kind of cool time to respond to any questions you guys might have after that info blast. You're welcome to ask if you'd like.
Yeah, Janine, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Hi, Gemini. That was fabulous. Thank you.
All right, Janine, hi.
Hi, this is really cool. Yeah, I'm very sorry to hear about your sister's dog, by the way. I'm sure we all are.
Penny Lane.
Penny Lane, beautiful. Look, this is a personal question about my chart, but I hope it's relevant to a lot of people. I recently, the full moon in Sagittarius, I had my sun is at Sagittarius 9 degrees, and my moon, I've just experienced the new moon then right on my Gemini moon, which is at 22 degrees, like zero orb. And I wanted to see what your take on that would be. They're both intercepted as well. In the 11th house is my sun.
Yeah, well, how was December for you? December 3rd in Australia and here as well. We had the Gemini full moon, which would have been opposite. This one that just occurred at this 9th or 10th degree of Sagittarius, tropical Sagittarius in our time, is the fixed star Antares, the heart of the scorpion, this royal star. And on the other side, at 10 Gemini, is Aldebaran, the eye of the bull. And they've been markers of the heavens for a long time. And this is actually a great question to come back into the idea of precession and the turning of the ages. And NASA's challenge regarding signs and constellations. But those two moons really paired. In fact, we have full moons at the 4 royal stars within a year, the December 3rd time with Aldebaran and Gemini, and then with Antares and Sagittarius in May, and we'll have a full moon at Regulus at early degrees Virgo, and then we'll have a full moon at Fomolo at like 5th degree Pisces, and these are known to be the 4 royal stars. So one thing I can say is that beings like yourself who have luminaries, or really any planet or sensitive degrees aligned to these royal stars, it's something to pay very specific attention to. So it's also a wonderful question to get back into this subject matter, because when I'm suggesting, well, actually, I'll just say, when I'm expressing the truth that the tropical zodiac is completely earth-based, this doesn't mean that the stars don't play. And there are very powerful stars. I mean, each one for sure. But those stars that you mentioned, or Antares anyway, it's a big deal. And then the 22nd degree of Gemini that you mentioned, my moon is very close. It's at 25. It's in the sacred hoop of stars where we just had this new moon. So I think that'd be a good way to get kind of back into this material, but be happy to hear any other questions now. But just in response, and I don't know if I'm addressing your question, well, whatever. Have a look at that early December time. Yeah. And the lunation, like the new moon before that entire lunation, and see what patterns map from that time and now. And I think you'll find more information to assist this contemplation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Hey there, I'm in my car, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
We can.
Okay, well, I just want to say that was fascinating. And I saw your thing about free session, or what, not session, but free class to sign up for your astronomy. And I thought, oh my God, I really want to do that. And after hearing this, I even more want to do it. And so it was really just a comment. And I'll just add that my south and north node are on those fixed stars, and so is my midheaven. And that new moon was just on my Jupiter. So,
wow. So on the fixed stars, Antares and Aldebaran we were just rapping about?
Well, it's not, my south node and north node are 11, south node 11 Sag, north node 11 Gemini, and my midheaven is 5 Pisces.
Oh, wow, cool. So you got all of them aligned. Yeah, my ascendant is 936 Gemini. So that's fun. We're seeing these Antares Aldebaran connections. All right, well, yeah, let me say something about those free classes. Actually, where is a good place to start here? I have some notes. And yeah, let me share my screen. If you would, whoever's in control of the recording, maybe cut it down to a speaker view. And I need buttons. This one, okay. All right, so can everyone see this slide?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. So yeah, I'm creating a Sacred Astronomy for Astrologers course. And you know, this video that you saw, a lot of my devotion, as you heard, is to bring astronomy back to astrologers. And I don't need to bring astrology to the astronomers. I mean, I'm one of the converts, and there's many of us. But the more important idea is to reconnect us to the planet that we chose, or perhaps the one that chose us. I don't know how it works, but I'm talking about Earth. And I want to say that the course itself has a lot of those animations. It's really hard to express this information just with pictures and words. So fortunately in this age, which I think the ability to create animations like this is certainly confirmation, or the ability for us to connect online around the world as we are right now. It's confirmation that we are certainly dawning into the age of Aquarius. So I wanted to speak about that a bit. But I thought I'd read this message I just received this morning, actually, to share how this course, it's not just nerdy science bit. I mean, I like to say, let's keep our sacred science sacred by honoring the scientific, and let's keep it scientific by honoring the sacred. So this is the mail I received this morning. Brett, I'm only on the second of your free videos. I laid down on Mother Earth. Now I feel connected to every blade of grass, tree, bird, a bit overstretched and not sure how to subside this feeling of being in center of my own spider web. I feel totally different. And she kind of asked, could I help, or at least give her some understanding of what she just did? And I said, well, you've connected to the heart of Gaia. Well done. The truth is, you'll always see me drinking tea. Like, my principal astrology teacher is plants and earth. And I mentioned this and read this comment because the course doesn't only have these nerdy videos, but a lot of different embodiment practices. And sometimes feel kind of ridiculous, where we're spinning around in circles or doing these postures, which I was recently told are actually true to old Hellenistic magic. I had no idea. But the point is to connect to the heart of Earth. That's where we measure astrology from, whether tropical astrology or sidereal astrology. So then after I told her that she's connected to the heart of Gaia and well done, she asked, well, now what do I do? And I told her, now you can ask Earth. So I'm very intent in my own practice, where I study through the books and these webinars, consistently, true to the Gemini moniker. But so much of my time, more and more and more, is not only like a practice with the sky, but practice with Earth. So I hope you'll check out my course. There's 12 lessons online for free, which you can find at this address you see at the bottom of the screen, morethan.astrology.com/sacredastro. And you can also enter your email address at morethan.astrology.com/free. And I will send you a bunch of things that I will mention as we move along, including the rest of this video that you just really saw the first half of. I've been pulling these all-nighters trying to get it done. I was hoping to show the whole thing today, because it's really hard to show some of these precessional things without imagery, but we're going to give it a go. All right, so let me stop my share actually for a second. Oh, buttons. Great. Can you see me okay?
Yes.
More importantly, can you see this globe?
Yes.
All right, and so really importantly, the globe is literally moving this way. And this is a key to me of why tropical zodiac works the same for the northern and the southern hemispheres. I mean, NASA and others are raising really important challenges for us right now. The signs and the constellations do not align. This is also true for sidereal astrology. Sidereal astrology is fixed to a star. Most of the sidereal zodiacs, which is, primarily practiced by Yodish astrologers, which we often call Vedic astrologers. Most of them are fixing the signs, the 12 equal 30-degree signs to the goddess star Spica. But the constellations, as NASA, very truthfully points out, they're not all the same size. And so if you look, like, for example, my birthday is October 24th, and the sun for me is tropical Scorpio, 1st degree. In the sidereal zodiac, I'm around 7 degrees Libra. But the sun was aligned to the constellation they call Virgo, which I'll call priestess, because I really like to differentiate between constellations and signs. They're different things. So am I Scorpio or Libra or Virgo? And hence Gemini Brett. I just have no idea. Let's go somewhere else. I'll go to my moon and my ascendant. But it's really important to say, because I think often we hear from sidereal astrologers that, well, tropical astrology is wrong because it's not aligned to the constellations. Well, the sidereal zodiac isn't either. It is more so for sure, but you can't have 12 equal signs aligned perfectly to the constellations ever. So really there's 3 different types of zodiacs that, at least that I'm aware of. One would be the tropical zodiac, which is aligned to the cardinal directions. I hope this video has expressed that and shown you that from a few different perspectives. The sidereal zodiac, which starts with a star. Some start with Spica. There's many different ways of doing sidereal astrology. And then a constellational zodiac. There's rumors that constellational astrology was practiced in Africa long ago, but I don't know. And this is what NASA's recommending, right? All right, so why do the constellations and signs shift over time? And it's called the Great Year, and it's because of the so-called third motion of Earth. So this is the primary motion, Earth spins on her axis in 24 hours, in other words, day. And that's where the houses are derived. All right, the secondary motion, if my hand is the sun, the axis is always pointed north-south. The secondary motion is Earth's orbit of sun, annual, year, and that's where the signs are derived from. But there's this third motion, both the primary, the spin, and the secondary, the orbit, are west to east, regardless of where you are on Earth. Again, our zodiac is directional. But the third motion goes the other way. And it's called an axial shift, or we often speak of it as the precession of the equinoxes. So let me share my screen and I'll show you an image that I didn't create. I'm on the way to creating an animation of showing the celestial poles moving through the sky over the course of time. This great cycle, many suggest, is about 26,000 years. Others have argued different numbers, and I'll say why as we talk about the Mayan situation and some of the transmissions from Yodish teachers like Sri Yari Yukteswar. But this long cycle, it really is a beautiful thing for us to participate with, the so-called dance through the astrological ages, or the precession of the equinoxes. Really, it's a precession not only of the equinoxes, but also of the solstices, and really of every degree of the zodiac. A beautiful reason why we should all connect is because it marries the Earth-based astrology of the tropical zodiac, because if we're talking precession of the equinoxes, we're usually looking at the March equinox point, which is due east. It marries the tropical zodiac with the stars and the constellations, with more of the sidereal point of view, right? Because when we're talking about like now being in the age of Pisces and transitioning to the age of Aquarius, we're looking at the point that we tropical astrologers always call zero Aries, but how it's moving and dancing through the constellations over the course of time. So the intent is probably within the next week to finish that video you just watched the first half of. And the reason why I started with the 13th sign thing is because I want to have something I can just send people when they email me about it, instead of answering them all. It's getting overwhelming. But also because the fun thing about this challenge by NASA, I think it first of all asks us to address very important questions as tropical astrologers. If our signs are not the constellations, what in the heavens, or rather, what on earth are they? And what changes as the signs swim through these different constellations during the course of this great year of about 26,000 years? Archetypally, is this part of the evolutionary engine, right? What are we meant to do about it? When does the beginning of the age of Aquarius begin? And very importantly, regardless of that question, which is in many ways subjective, we'll look at that a little bit. Right now in our time, what I feel to be the most important cosmological happening, regardless of which zodiac you may choose, the solstices are currently aligned to the galactic cross. So I'll show some images for what this means, but it's more, let me just say the information is more available through moving pictures than still ones. So if you head over to morethan-astrology.com/free, whether you're listening to this presentation live or joining later in space and time, I will send you the completed video and some other articles that I've written and videos that I've made that kind of address this question and this intention of spreading the message of galactic alignment, as John Major Jenkins, who we'll speak about coming up here too, coined this term of what I feel for sure, despite Uranus, Pluto, and Saturn, Neptune, and all these wonderful things, is the container, the greatest energetic and initiation path that I feel we've incarnated to participate with. All right, so over the course of what most claim to be 26,000 years, NASA's number is now like 25,700 years and change. The ancient numerological system that's coded into so many global systems is 25,920 years. And the reason is because it is said that it takes 72 years for a degree of precession. Okay, so what is precession? A procession, like a funeral march, is a forward march. Precession is backwards, because this third motion of Earth, as it's explained by astronomers today, although I think some people have argued for different cases of just why it's happening, because it's opposite the spin and the orbit. What happens is the zodiac is moving backwards in a circle against the fixed stars and constellations. And so what we're looking at here is an image that, by the way, I didn't create, and I don't know who did, but it's a great one, so thank you. You can see Polaris at the bottom of the screen where it says today, and this is the current North Star. Many of you listening live right now live in the southern hemisphere, and I wish I had an image to show you of the South Pole stars as well. Right now, there's not a South Pole star, as you down there, I'm sure, well know. But that doesn't mean there always is not. Right now, we have what astronomy today says to be, according to the modern model, the most precisely aligned North Star of all time, Polaris. And I believe this is one of the driving forces of reconnecting our astrology to the cardinal direction, something that is, I believe, a principal practice of any shamanic tradition. And I've been on a long, I'll just say energetic diet with the star Polaris, which has led me into these different mysteries. So about 13,000 years ago, this slide says 14,000, Vega was the star that was most closely aligned to the north celestial pole. What that means is where Earth's spin axis is pointing in space, okay? So that sets up north, the other side, of course, south, and that sets up east and west. So as this thing changes, it's not just the celestial poles that are moving, but the directions east and west are shifting too. And this is why we often speak of this as the precession of the equinoxes. Those are the east and west degrees, respectively, Aries and Libra in the directional zodiac. And so many will tell you, for you to find out what age you're in right now, go on March equinox and watch the sunrise and see what constellation it's aligned to. Well, here's the issue, and I was actually dumb enough to try that once. The sun is super bright and you don't see any stars when it rises. So some will argue it's actually about the constellation that you last see on the horizon before the dawn light takes the stars from view. And that now is certainly the water bearer. But there's a different way you can do this. In my course, I teach a very simple way to play with some daily shadow work to create a medicine wheel on Earth. And having done so, you now have the direction east, and you can just sit east and watch what stars align there. Zodiacal stars align perfectly to that point any day of the year. In fact, the best time is like now. I'm presenting this in late June, and that means that the March degrees of the zodiac are rising in the middle of the night. So you can be outside and sit east, and when the 0 degrees Aries point rises, tropical Aries point rises, you will see exactly where we are in the precessional cycle, which is certainly still the constellation of the fish. Okay, so one more thing before we leave this image of the North Celestial Pole precession. 72 years per degree, 72 times 360 degrees of the zodiacal circle is 25,920. Notice also what's in the very center of all potential stars, north stars, over the course of this cycle. It's the dragon, Draco. And in fact, if I could fill this in, it's kind of right where the dragon holds that ball that you often see depicted. So I like to say that the dragon is north of north. And once I've connected to that, since I've connected to that, I see it all over the place in the esoteric mysteries and images. All right, so this talk is called The Sun on the Hand of the High Man. And what is that? It's rumored that this was a Celtic prophecy about the turning of the ages. This is June 21st, 2018, with the sun culminating. This is Stellarium software and cast for Seattle, Washington, where I live. And this is the sun culminating every day when sun reaches due south. It's on this cross. All right, but that's a daily thing. But there's a different cross that's happening in our time. Sun at solstice is at the galactic cross. What does that mean? That means where the plane of our solar system, right, the ecliptic, which is the yellow curve you see here, sun is always on that point. Sun always has 0 degrees latitude. It's where our local neighborhood, the solar system, crosses the plane of our greater neighborhood, the Milky Way galaxy, the cosmic serpent that embraces us, biting its own tail, which happens on the other side at galactic center. So the June solstice sun can only align to this side of the Milky Way around once every 26,000 years. And it's right on the hand of the high man, which is the club of Orion, in the midst of this asterism, a super constellation, that the astronomers call the winter hexagon. And the stars, I'll start from the top right of the meridian, that's Capella. And then moving counterclockwise, the two next to each other, Castor and then Pollux, and then Procyon, the little dog, Sirius, the big dog, Regal, the left foot of Orion, and Aldebaran, the eye of the bull, which we were talking about earlier. Well, some cultures use, instead of Aldebaran, the Pleiades to form this great circle of the heavens that the Lakota called the sacred hoop, shown here. So the sacred hoop is said to be the place where our souls come from. And also that it is the Anipi, or the lodge in the sky, that we will move through when we die to transition to the other place. And some have said that after we are purified there, we walk the red road, which is the Milky Way, to our destination point that's set somewhere in the southwest, and that would be galactic center. It's rumored that in Egyptian mysteries, this place that the Lakota call the sacred hoop was known as the Silver Gate, and later as the Silver Key of St. Pete. In the same rap, that's where our souls come from. And where our souls will go is to the other side, the center of the galaxy, the Golden Gate, the Golden Key. This is a wonderful book if you want to pursue this train, Lakota Star Knowledge by Ronald Goodman. This is an off-center slide that's showing you that the sacred hoop stars also live on the earth, as above, so below. And they do so in South Dakota, in the so-called Black Hills. The constellation that we call the Twins, they called the Bear's Den. And it's mapped on the earth as the Sacred Tower, written in this slide. I love that, because these days it's been renamed by people who do not know about the sacred nature of land, Devil's Tower, right? All right, sun on the hand of the high man. So there's these amazing prophecies about this. Many are speaking about the December solstice sun alignment to the galactic cross on the other side near galactic center. We'll talk more about that. But I haven't heard people speaking about this side so much yet. The Celts talked about when the sun is on the hand of the high man. The Celts, obviously, northern hemisphere tradition, right? And very northern hemisphere, where Orion is a super high in the sky constellation. And this time, June solstice, obviously for the northern hemisphere, is summer solstice. So what? The height of the light. Now, June solstice, northern hemisphere summer solstice, degree of the zodiac, and therefore the summer solstice sun up north, only aligns here, as I said before, every 26,000 years. And the prophecy, though I've never seen it written, I've only heard whispers, seems to suggest that something significant will shift on Earth when the sun is on the hand of the high man. Well, regardless of where we are in the precessional cycle, sun aligns to Orion's club in these sacred hoops of stars every year. But in our time, it's the height of the light in the northern hemisphere sky, which is something that was much discussed by the same whispers of these prophecies. So something's going down, my friend. And the alignment is not just 2018. It's not just 2012, but that's something we should speak about. But rather, because sun is not a point, but rather about a half degree of arc in our sky, from about 1975 until 2025. So we are in this window that perhaps is one of the prime initiators of whatever we might call this strange thing that's happening to us, awakening. I prefer the term awakening. Here's 500 BC. And you can see that at that time, indeed, the summer solstice degree was aligned to the constellation of the Crab. It's interesting to see it was a new moon at this time, too. I didn't pick that up. Notice that it's June 28th. Why? Well, that's the whole Julian to Gregorian calendar shift, and let's not get too nerdy about that. But so the sacred hoop, you can see Orion is way over there to the right. Sun's aligned to the constellation of the Crab. Here's 500 years from now. And you can see that the constellations are in a different place. It's tricky. The right way to speak about this is that the zodiac, or the directions and the seasonal stations, are precessing or moving backwards through the constellation. So it's not that the bull has been chasing the sun down, although that's certainly happening. It's a matter of relativity. The right way to kind of contemplate precession, because it is a backwards movement of the directions through the constellations, is that the June solstice degree in 500 years from now will precess or move backwards from the hand of the high man out of the Milky Way into the horns of the bull, which is very close to the where the new moon just was, as I'm recording this in June of 2018. 3500 AD, all right? And now sun is aligned to one of these royal stars, one of the so-called marker stars of the heavens, Aldebaran, the eye of the bull. 5000 AD, by the way, I think I said 3500 BC here, that's 3500 AD. 5000 AD, and now you can see that the June solstice degree is with the ram, okay? At that same time, here's the March equinox degrees, 0 degrees Aries, all right, the direction east, and the butt of the sea goat, right? Capricornus constellation. And so where we find the 0 degrees Aries point constellationally, some suggest will tell us what age we are in. This in 5000 AD suggests we will be in the age of the goat, or the age of the sea goat, or I guess we could say the age of Capricorn. You can hear me just really willfully differentiating constellations and signs, right? 2018, June 21st, but now looking at the 0 Aries degree aligned to the fish, all right, the ecliptic fish. One heads up to the heavens, northern hemisphere, for the southern hemisphere, down to earth, which is a beautiful thing. And the other swims along the ecliptic plane. And regardless, you can very clearly see that the 0 Aries degree is there and very far from the water bearer who's way off to the right, okay? Precession very slow, 72 years for 1 degree. So we're going to be aligned here to the head of the fish in the great square of Pegasus you can see above for quite some time. It won't be until, like, here's one for 3333 AD. The 0 degrees Aries point now aligned to the water stream being poured by the constellation of the water bearer. And so it's going to be a while for the age of Aquarius to officially begin if we are using constellational philosophy for the shifting of the ages. Well, here's the issue with that. Look at how huge the fish are compared to the water bearer. Look at how huge the fish are compared to the ram to their left in this image. Look at how huge the water bearer is compared to the goat. All right, and some of this has to do with this like screen being stretched so we can look at 3 cardinal directions at once, which you can't do with your face. But it's very, very true that constellations are not the same size. Another argument that NASA's put forth with this space place page, right? So if we use constellational philosophy, we're not dawning into the age of Aquarius for a long time. But creation creates in 12s and even 12s. And so I believe these constellations were created to map the energies of the signs, not the other way around. And understand, this is very wrong in the face of, in the eyes of astrological history. But I invite you to contemplate that and play with that for a bit. So if we're using an even amount of time, as we use an even degree for every sign, the precessional age of every sign is 2160 years. Okay, so I can just take that number 72 years for 1 degree of precession and multiply it by 30, and I arrive to that number. The numerological system is really interesting because 2160, the digital root numerology is a 9, 72, a 9. I talked about the sun's diameter before, 864,000 miles, a 9. All right, the moon is 2160 miles in diameter, the same number of the numerological or the ancient code for precession. It's a very interesting thing. And I mentioned earlier that the sun is about 108 Earth's diameters in diameter. The sun is about 108 sun diameters from the Earth. Well, moon is about 108 moon diameters from the Earth. And this magical number, 1 + 0 + 8 again equals 9, figures into eclipse cycles and all sorts of things. It's also 72 and a half of 72. So it's a precessional thing. And I invite you to explore that. There's many books I was going to share, but we're a little short on time. So we're just going to continue to cruise. Here we are in this time, sun in the sacred hoop at solstice time. All right, aligned to the galaxy. On the hand of the high man. What does this mean? And I'll share another prophecy which comes from the Bible. Jesus is on trial and they're trying to get him to admit of his blasphemy. And they say, is this true? Did you say you are the Son of God? And he's like, yeah. And you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven, sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One. Well, anyone who's played outside understands that the clouds of heaven are the Milky Way. If you've been out under dark skies, it's like, wait, are those clouds? No, it's our galaxy. The right hand of the Mighty One will look at this. And in my cosmology, and I'm certainly not the first, Jesus, who said he is the Son of Man and the way of the light and such, is literally the sun. And so this seems to be true also in biblical prophecy. Now, what does it mean? All right, here's the other side. Here's December solstice time. And the December solstice sun is now aligned to the galactic center. All right, now let me just say more about that, because we use in astrology typically 27 degrees tropical Sagittarius here as galactic center point, right? And there's very good reasons why we should, but understand that that center point, which is the massive black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, can only be seen, well, it can't be. We only know about it because of radio telescopes, okay? That doesn't mean you can't feel it psychically, energetically, whatever. But it's not on the ecliptic plane. It's in the center of this blue square. It's not on the yellow curve, which is the ecliptic plane. What we do with fixed stars like Antares, the heart of the scorpion over there to the right, that aren't on the ecliptic plane, is we draw a perpendicular line to them. We project to the zodiac. So the 27 degrees Sagittarius for galactic center is the projection of the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy to the ecliptic plane. Meanwhile, what we see with our eyes is the galactic cross. So this diagonal curve here is the Milky Way. And where it crosses in our day and our age, the ecliptic plane, it always crosses the ecliptic plane in the same place, but in our day and age, the solstice degree is aligned there. Right? The birth of the sun, 0 Capricorn, in the mouth of the serpent. This is an image I took in Sedona in 2017. And here's a little kind of helper so you can see how this Ouroboros is the Milky Way eating its own tail, the cosmic serpent. And fortunately, Saturn at this point was playing the eyeball, so it's a little bit easier to see. This was December solstice last year. So we've been having this Earth-Sun galactic cross alignment since about 1975, but now it's coming down to Earth. Now it's coming into form because here we were aligned to Saturn. Jupiter alignment in 2019 at December solstice, Mercury in 2020. I cannot highly enough recommend this amazing text by the great, now sadly late, John Major Jenkins, Galactic Alignment. John also wrote Maya Cosmogenesis 2012, and he was one of the first who, like my first teacher, Daniel Jamario, was speaking about this alignment of our time of the solstices precessing to the galactic cross. John in this book teaches us about Mayan, Egyptian, Vedic, Mithras, many culture traditions looking to this time of great shift. Here's an image of Daniel Jamario, who I mentioned before. All right, so here's this idea of sun sitting on the coming on the clouds of heaven, sitting at the hand of the mighty one. And this is a trip. This is coded into DC, which has been a huge part of my personal study. So I will refer you to, and it's something that I'll send you a link for if you go over to morethan.astrology.com/free and send me your email. I'll send you a bunch of free stuff. But you can also just find this on YouTube, which is Washington Decoded, the Star Mysteries of DC. It's not short, which probably doesn't surprise you at this point. It's 3 hours, 33 minutes, and 33 seconds, and very intentionally so. But what I've seen is that in the Capitol building, under this great statue of a goddess, who they say is America, this painting that Washington here is looking up at, it's called the Apotheosis of Washington, which literally means Washington becoming a god. So you see him here in military regalia, with an interesting hand posture, by the way, pointing to Pallas Athena, who's hanging out with Ben Franklin down there. Now he's sitting on a rainbow, all right, which invokes images of Christ's second coming, very interestingly. A lot of this information, by the way, came to me through this very interesting text by William Henry, Freedom's Gate. And in this text, William Henry shows some amazing correlations of this painting to sacred geometry. There's Metatron's cube shown with the circles aligned to these gods. Well, I'll get a better image. Here we go. At the top, Mercury, Hermes, right? And I'll move counterclockwise, earthwise. So there's Neptune, who's actually with Venus. and then Pallas Athena on one side of the rainbow. At the bottom, America, they say, and then Ceres from there. Interestingly, with 7 figures, who remind me for some reason of the Pleiades, and then Hephaestus or Vulcan. And Washington sitting here in the midst of them, in between all of these angels on a rainbow. And there are 72 stars, right? So anytime we hear 72, think precession. I found in a dream that this is a map of the sacred hoop. Here they are aligned. And it fits not only geometrically, but mythologically. Hermes aligned to the twins that we call Gemini, who rules that sign in the astrological language. Neptune is the little dog Procyon, and Athena is the big dog Sirius. Well, if you know about the naming of Athens, you might see why that is so. Down below, America aligned to Orion's foot, Rigel, and who's holding this club up to Washington, really, who's right with the great star Betelgeuse. Aldebaran at Ceres, Demeter, right? Goddess of the crop. Aldebaran, the eye of the bull. And what's on the bull's back but the 7 sisters. And then Vulcan as Auriga. Now look at this posture compared to that. I mean, this is an image of Orion. Here's another statue from DC. This is Joan of Arc, who's literally looking up to the June solstice height of the light. Due south. Well, what's aligned there now? Orion. Look at her posture. So Washington's looking up to himself becoming a god, sitting on a rainbow, which I suggest is the Milky Way running between these great stars. And in the frieze of the Capitol building is this. Many will say that's a Mayan calendar. No, it's not. That is the Mexica sunstone, which many call Aztec. A temple, a dwelling place of the gods, tempum, other related to space, tempest, other related to time. So what I'll show you in that video, if you go check it out, is how it seems to me that the founders of DC, who were, initiated into the mysteries, were using planetary alignments to the sacred hoop of stars for electionals, for things like signing of the Declaration of Independence, signing of the Constitution. And even the next time Jupiter returned here 12 years later, it was the death of Washington, very interestingly, who was kind of bled to death, but you can hear more about that in the movie if you choose. So I hope you'll go check it out. And again, hook up at morethan-astrology.com/free. You can see it at the top there, and I'll send you all the stuff you see here. I just want to share, I want to share a few more things, but before I stop my screen share, I'll be teaching a 3-day intensive of astronomy for astrologers at Organization for Professional Astrologies, Astrologer Retreat in Tucson, Arizona. I hope you'll go check out Organization for Professional Astrology online and read more about that happening. They've decided to make astronomy for astrologers part of their certification process, which I love. And so does this serpent eating its own tail. And morethan-astrology.com/sacred astro if you're interested in pursuing this path. All right, so a couple of things. Mayan calendar, right? So this is not it. Though certainly the Mexica sunstone speaks about the turning of the ages too. Here's one of the Mayan calendars. This is the Hab. We often speak about the Tzolk'in. Neither of those are this long count calendar that seems to be related to the precessional mysteries, because the deal is a long count of 13 Baktuns is 5,125 tropical years. And that number times 5 gets you very close to the kind of accepted by NASA now number for the precession of the equinox. It's actually the Mayans were closer than the 25,920 number. Another number that was put forth by Sri Yari Yukteswar in his Holy Sciences, that's Yogananda's teacher, right? He said 24,000 years, because he says this rate changes He says it has nothing to do with this so-called third motion of Earth, which, by the way, Newton proposed based upon a static sun, so a sun that does not move. Yukteswar suggests that there is another star that our sun is in a binary orbit with, and that's moving us in our whole solar system through space in such a way that the signs and the constellations realign during this great cycle, which he suggests is about 24,000 years. And he suggests that we came out of the Kali Yuga as a process of this cycle around the time that Uranus was discovered. You can pursue that in this wonderful book, The Yugas. And in the long video, I'll like write all the authors and stuff. The Lost Star of Myth and Time by Walter Cruttenden is a wonderful pursuit in that regard too. So it's hard to say how long this cycle is. It's hard to say what it does, though the myth certainly suggests and history shows us how the shift from the age of the bull to the age of the ram to the age of the fish and dawning into this age of the water bearer are very significant for the evolution of human consciousness. They typically involve the coming of an avatar, which many of these mysteries seem to prophesize for our day and age. I think some suggest that things are just going to get strange. Some maybe suggest that everything blows up in smoke or the flood comes again. And I have a feeling this is like a whole different share, but I have a feeling that Jupiter saved us from that right around the time that this galactic alignment began in 1975, that comet Shoemaker-Levy could have been kind of the age ender. I very much believe the story of Gaia's rape by Uranus has nothing to do with human beings, though it's something we should play with mythically, psychologically, spiritually, etc. But it's about the earth being raped by the heavens, and I'm convinced that that was a comet. I'll really invite you to check out the teachings of Randall Carlson, who's kind of a rogue geologist. He has a wonderful presentation you can find on YouTube called The Cycles of Catastrophe, which is a scary thing to address. But my feeling is that this shift is not about our destruction. It's about our awakening. And regardless of whether the equinox point is aligned to the fish or the water bearer, there is an undeniable, visible happening in our time, which is that one side of the galactic cross is at the highest height of the northern hemisphere sky every day, and that's called the sacred hoop or the silver gate. And in the southern hemisphere, the side where galactic center resides is at the highest height, the December solstice degree. This is a time of amazing change. How do we play with that astrologically? I could show you that in charts another time, but I'm really just trying to sit with that. But most importantly, what I do is I sit with the sky. This is the most profound time of the year to sit with the galactic center, because sun is exactly opposite. And so galactic center is rising when sun sets and setting when sun rises and culminating in the middle of the night, regardless of where you live. I would love it if I heard from each of you later on that said, I had this experience with that great cosmic serpent, and here's the news you're trying to hear, Gemini Brett. All right, well, thanks again for having me on EA Zoom. It's always a treat, a bit of a different session this time. And again, I apologize for the delay and some video hiccups that we began with. But I'm glad you could join, and I look forward to seeing you all again.
Well, thank you so much, Gemini. What incredible knowledge and wisdom you have. Thank you so much from all of us. See you next time. Bye from all of us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Gemini.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. That was fabulous.